Everybody ready? Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for being here today, including Whip Clark, Leader Schumer, Senator Sanders, Congressman Fitzpatrick, Senator Murray, Jonna Hayes, and most importantly, the workers in the room. And insofar as all politics is local, is the Virginia AFL-CIO in the house? Yay! How about local 8888 from Newport News? Yeah! All right. So as we stand here today, workers across the country are under attack. Since President Trump returned to office, he and Elon Musk have made it their mission to sow chaos and confusion on workers across the country, siphoning workers' private data and dismantling workers' protections and resources. We can fight back, and for the sake of workers, their families, so that they can live in a dignified life. This is why I'm proud to stand along my colleagues on both sides of the aisle in both chambers to reintroduce H.R. 20, the Richard L. Trumka Protecting the Right to Organize Act, or the PRO Act. This bill is the most significant upgrade in U.S. labor law in over 80 years. For too long, workers have suffered from anti-union attacks and toothless labor laws that have undermined their right to work safely and be paid fairly. The PRO Act will hold law-breaking employers accountable by establishing meaningful penalties for employers who violate workers' rights. It will secure free, fair, and safe union elections by preventing employer interference, and it cracks down on corporations that misclassify employees to stymie their right to organize. This is a critical moment for workers in American history. We cannot abandon workers, the backbone of the American economy, when they're under attack from anti-worker politicians and law-breaking corporations. Congress must act and pass the PRO Act to ensure that workers can form a union, bargain for higher pay and better benefits, and enjoy safer workplaces. So I urge my House and Senate colleagues on both sides of the aisle to join us in supporting this bicameral, bipartisan legislation, ensuring that workers can achieve what they are owed for their hard work. And so it's now my pleasure to turn it over to the Senate champion for workers, the ranking member of the Senate Help Committee, the senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders.
Let me thank Bobby Scott for all of the great work he is doing in the House and for bringing his fan club all the way here. Let me thank Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senator Patty Murray, and Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick for being with us today. Let me thank Liz Schuler, the president of the AFL-CIO, who represents over 15 million workers throughout this country. Let us be clear, and I think Bobby made this point, this country is rapidly moving toward an oligarchic form of society where the billionaire class is doing phenomenally well, while 60% of American workers live paycheck to paycheck. Guys, we know what paycheck to paycheck is about? All right. Unbelievably, wealthiest three oligarchs in America, Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg, now own more wealth than the bottom half of American society, 170 million people. If you can believe it, the average worker today, despite a huge increase in worker productivity, makes about $40 a week less than he or she made 52 years ago. There are a number of reasons for that economic reality that we're in today. Federal minimum wage, not been raised for 16 years. Anyone think that anyone can live on $7.25 an hour? Corporate America shipped millions of good-paying jobs to China, Mexico, and other low-wage countries because of our disastrous trade policies. But the most important fact is that trade union membership has gone down by about 50% since 1983. That is unacceptable, and that is got to change. At a time when unions today are more popular than they have been for decades, we have got to make it easier for workers to exercise their constitutional right to form a union. We have got to make it easier for workers to collectively bargain for better wages, better benefits, and better working conditions. We have got to make it clear that corporate CEOs must be held accountable for their illegal union busting. We have got to make the PRO Act the law of the land. I was proud that, that as the chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, we passed, with Patty Murray's help, for the very first time, the PRO Act out of our committee last Congress. Frankly, I was extremely disappointed that that bill never got a vote on the Senate floor. It is important that the American people know where their senators stand on this important piece of legislation. Now, Bobby listed all of what the PRO Act does to protect workers, so I'm not going to go over that. But what I will say is that in the last few weeks, we have seen Elon Musk, the wealthiest man on earth, single-handedly terminate the jobs of hundreds of thousands of federal employees, many of whom have dedicated their lives to public service, and many of whom are veterans who put their lives on the line to defend our country. Now, some people out there will say, well, you know, that's too bad, but I don't have to worry because I am not a federal employee. But guess what? And I want you to think about this. If Musk and his friends can arbitrarily fire hundreds of thousands of federal employees, what do you think they're going to do to the millions of workers who are impacted by the technological revolution of artificial intelligence and robotics? What do you think they're going to do to those people? Do you think they give a damn about those workers, or they simply toss them out onto the streets, which is precisely what they will do? The only protection that workers will have from massive layoffs through AI and robotics is through forming unions, standing up for their rights, and making sure that the new technology benefits workers and not just the oligarchs. And now let me introduce Kieran Quadras, a Wells Fargo worker who successfully organized with her co-workers to form a union despite intense union busting. Kieran?
Thank you, Senator Sanders. You are my hero. I have to say that. Good afternoon. My name is Karen Quadras. I started my career at Wells Fargo over 22 years ago, first as a teller, then as a branch manager, and later as an investigator. Our department handles misconduct allegations against Wells Fargo from both employees and also customers. It was created because of the fake account scandal and the numerous consent orders. Every day, my coworkers and I made a real difference. When working at the branch, we were able to help people through their financial struggles, like a single mom who came in with significant overdraft fees and a negative account balance. We were there to turn her life around and get her back on her feet. As an investigator in conduct management, my team and I were the front line, protecting customers and employees by ensuring fairness within the financial system. We handled complaints involving unauthorized accounts, improper fee disclosures, discriminatory lending practices, and employee ethical concerns. I like to say that things have changed since the fake account scandals. But Wells Fargo continues to cut corners in ways that puts Wells Fargo's customers and our employees at risk. I saw firsthand how Wells Fargo uses shortcuts to create the illusion of fewer complaints. But in reality, they are closing many cases prematurely rather than properly investigating. Managers at the branch level now press workers on meeting sales outcomes, which is just code for sales quotas. And we are still seeing complaints about unauthorized accounts. We chose to form a union to challenge the policies that contributed to the fake account scandal and also to protect our jobs from being outsourced, as it could expose sensitive U.S. military information to foreign entities. Unsurprisingly, Wells Fargo has fought us hard. When we first began organizing, each employee started to get pulled one by one into conference calls held by their respective managers that upper management joined to preach anti-union talking points. They tried to convince us that forming a union, we would not be protected from layoffs. I was vocal about my support for forming a union in every town hall and in every captive audience meeting. I knew a union would protect our jobs and make Wells Fargo better. 9 days before our union election, 11 of my colleagues and I were laid off in an attempt to scare and intimidate others from voting for the union. Shame. It is. I have been out of a job since October, and while I'm finishing my bachelor's degree in political science, I've been looking for work, because my health insurance for my kids is needed. Luckily, thanks to my husband's union job, he's in Launa, we have health insurance for the time being, but we still need to figure out another way to make ends meet. A majority of us still voted yes, even after being laid off in our election, so that we could join the CWA. And the NLRB actually certified our election in December. But it shouldn't come as a, thank you. I know, thank you. Thank you. But here's the bad news. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that Wells Fargo is flaunting the law. Wells Fargo is refusing to recognize our union or to begin contract negotiations, which it's legally obligated to do so. Why? Because they're a corporate giant? Because they are greedy? Without a quorum at the NLRB or any legal recourse, we are stuck in limbo, which is frustrating and outrageous. Despite everything, I wouldn't change a thing. My coworkers and I are continuing to fight for our union. The union is our collective voice, even though they told us they were a third party. We told them it is our voice. But labor law needs more teeth so employers like Wells Fargo can't get away with undermining and violating our rights every step of the way. We need legislation like the PRO Act because weak labor laws allow companies like Wells Fargo to union bust. They're trying to make sure that we're scared so that we won't form a union. The PRO Act puts power back into the hands of workers and imposes real penalties instead of a slap on the hand for breaking the law and bans mandatory anti-union meetings like the ones we face on a consistent basis. I'm proud to stand with labor champions like Senator Sanders, Schumer, and Murray, and also Representatives Jeffries, Fitzpatrick, and Scott in support of the PRO Act. I look up to you guys. Let's pass the PRO Act to ensure every worker has a fair opportunity to organize and negotiate a just contract, because all workers in every sector and across all political affiliations, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, it doesn't matter if you're Republican, this affects us all. We're humans. We deserve a voice in the workplace. We need to stand up to corporate greed. Let's not forget the reason. I think that's the main point. Do not forget the reason that you all have an 8-hour workday. You have overtime pay, and there are child labor laws in effect, and it's because of unions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is the House Democratic Whip, the gentlelady from Massachusetts, Ms. Clark, Catherine Clark.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here with my colleagues in support of the PRO Act. I am so honored to be here with workers and labor leaders. And Kiernan, we are so honored to be here with you. Your story, and thank you for sharing it, is told so many times across this country and underscores the need for this legislation. Corporations bust unions because they know the power of a union card. Nothing gives a worker more sway over their financial future. Nothing better prepares a worker to fight for what they're owed, to build a workplace they deserve. Nothing compares to the solidarity of your coworkers. The elites and the billionaires, they're scared of that power. And that's why they have orchestrated an all-out assault on working people in this country. This administration is gutting Social Security. It is dismantling Medicare and Medicaid. It is defunding our public schools and destroying the public services that people depend on and pay for with their tax dollars. And then they're going after the right to join a union. Trump illegally purged the National Labor Relations Board, so now they don't have a quorum. And we know what that means. It means we can't enforce our labor laws. It means CEOs are free to obstruct union elections as long as they want. It means they won't be held accountable for violating workers' rights. And guess what? It means Elon Musk won't face consequences for illegally firing the SpaceX workers whose case was before the NLRB. He is abusing the power of the federal government so he can live above the law. Billionaires, who are apparently now running the show in Trump's Washington, want to preserve their own power. They want to amass even more money by stealing from working people, keeping wages low, denying them their rights, and weakening their voice on the job. It doesn't have to be this way. It shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't take a legal battle in this country to organize your workplace. It should be easy. It's your right. It's time for Congress to take this principle and make it a reality for workers in this country. It's time for my colleagues across the aisle to show the working people of this country where they stand. I thank you all. I thank you for your work. I thank you for your solidarity, and I thank you for your courage. We will move forward together. We will rise together, and we will get the PRO Act made into law. Thank you.
Our next speaker is the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, Senate Democratic leader, gentleman from New York, Chuck Schumer.
Thank you, everybody. Well, thank you. I want to thank Bobby Scott and Catherine Clark and Brian Fitzpatrick for being here. I want to thank Bernie and Patty, our great labor leaders. Liz Shuler does a great job leading the AFL-CIO and the millions of men and women in organized labor. I want to thank Kieran Kudris for the great. My mother-in-law was CWA. Yes, so I know what a great union it is. And I also want to just say one thing here before we get into the PRO Act. In the 1930s, the union movement was really strengthened and expanded under Franklin Roosevelt. And for 40 years, the middle class expanded and grew because unions were able to take the money they deserved from their labor and get better salaries, better benefits, better retirement. And then the bosses got together and used the law and everything else to try and stop the union movement from expanding and even try to shrink it. And guess what happened? Income inequality started to rise instead of getting better, and the middle class stagnated. The union movement created the middle class in America. The union movement is needed to deal with the problems we face, that the middle class is declining and in worse shape. And that's why the PRO Act is so important. And we stand on the shoulders of people who helped fight for these unions in 1930s, including my grandpa, who was one of the founders of the Paper Workers Union. He worked in the paper mills in Utica, New York, and not one of the top 3, but one of the top 50. He was an organizer. So I've been union all the way. The American dream is slipping. The best way to restore the American dream for the American people is enact the PRO Act into law. Plain and simple. Corporations are reaping more and more of the profits. They have found ways to weaken the right to organize. They have basically captured the Republican Party, as represented by what they're doing right now in the Senate on the NLRB, which Catherine Clark mentioned, and we need it. The whole purpose of the Republican Party under Donald Trump and Elon Musk is to hurt average Americans so that they can create tax breaks for their billionaire buddies. And one of the ways they want to hurt average Americans is trying to prevent unions from forming and trying to destroy unions that already exist. Plain and simple. All for their billionaire buddies. That's what the party's all about these days, unfortunately. That's why they want to cut Medicare and Social Security. That's why they want to get rid of the Office of Education. That's why they want to just fire people in a cruel way. All of those things. All of those things. I care about this. It's personal to me. I was the original sponsor of what was the predecessor of this bill. We first called it card check. I was the sponsor, but my mentor, Ted Kennedy, came over to me and said, you know, you're a new guy around here. We need some really big, powerful guy to be the lead sponsor. So Ted became the lead sponsor, and that was great. Then it became EFCA, and now it's the PRO Act. We've been fighting for this for a long time, and I've been involved in the fight for a long time, but I want to assure the workers here, I will stay with this until we enact the PRO Act into law. America needs it more than ever. Working people need it more than ever. Our country needs it more than ever. We must get it done. Thank you, everybody.
Our next speaker is a senator from Washington State, the ranking member on the Committee on Appropriations, Senator Patty Murray.
All right. Thank you, Bobby. Always great to work with you and all of our legislative leaders, but mostly I want to say thank you to the workers who are behind me and in front of me. Thank you for being here. You know, the difference in values between Democrats and Republicans, the difference in who we are fighting for, could not be more clear or more stark. Right now, Donald Trump and Elon Musk are attacking workers, including mass firing people by tens of thousands left and right, regardless of how important their work is or the skill and pride with which they are doing it. In fact, he fired NLRB member Gwen Wilcox, leaving workers in limbo simply due to President Trump's unprecedented and illegal firing. Meanwhile, I want you to know Democrats are fighting for our workers. We're fighting to protect those who are being attacked by Trump and Musk, and fighting to empower workers across our country to better advocate for themselves and wield their rights at this pivotal moment. That is why reintroducing the PRO Act is more important now than ever. This is about making sure that we are not just pushing back, but also pushing forward, charting a positive vision for workers and daring Republicans to make their actions match their words. Who do you stand with? The billionaires like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, whose favorite 2 words are "you are fired"? Or do you stand with hardworking American women and men, people who just want fair pay, decent treatment, and a government that actually works to make their lives better, not worse? That should not be too much to ask. I'm very proud to be a leader of this bill, and I want you to know I will keep fighting, come hell or high water, to make it easier for workers to join together and fight for the better pay and working conditions they deserve. Thank you.
And our final speaker is the lead advocate for workers in the United States, the national president of the AFL-CIO, Liz Schuler.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And I am just beaming with pride looking at all of the workers up here because it's just absolute courage and tenacity and fight and drive. And they're standing up for everyone. You know, if you think about a voice on the job, these folks up here are the ones who are fighting for it. So I just want to say thank you. I'm actually thrilled to be here today because, you know, when I heard that we were reintroducing the PRO Act today, the Richard L. Trumka PRO Act, I have to, my mine worker sisters and brothers over here, I just, it gave me pause, you know, thinking about our former president and my mentor. And then, of course, to have such an all-star lineup of electeds with us, Leader Schumer and Senator Sanders, of course, fighting every day to bring voice, Senator Murray, Representative Clark, and, of course, Representative Scott, who leads in committee and wakes up thinking about workers every day, Representative Fitzpatrick, certainly Donald Norcross, who's one of us, and I know Johanna Hayes was here earlier, union members who have made it to the Congress. And then I see Doris Cross-Mays back here, our Virginia AFL-CIO leader. But most of all, Kieran, I just want to thank you. Kieran, who is, you know, from Wells Fargo United, which has really been an inspiration to all of us. And it takes a lot of courage to share your story. So thank you for being up here in these hallowed halls of Congress and bringing that forward. So look, we have heard from day one of this new administration, this new Congress, that they keep talking about the will of the people. We heard this last night, post-election. So let's actually talk about the will of the people right now. 71%. That is the number of Americans who say they support unions. 71% of the public. It's a 60-year high. Every other issue in this country splits down the middle, right? But 71% of people, Trump voters, Biden voters, everyone in between, say, I believe in unions. Tens of millions of Americans say, I would join a union tomorrow if I could. Because they know they are working, as Senator Sanders said, harder and harder for less, living paycheck to paycheck. They see the profits of their companies going up and up, and pay, by the way, for CEOs. We track this every year. Any guesses on the ratio of the average worker to CEO pay? Any? Yeah. Okay, I'll just tell you. It's 268 to 1, right? And workers are seeing that a union is how you fight back. A union means I make more money. A union means I have good health care and good benefits. A union means I have more power and voice on the job. Those are not outlandish ideas, by the way. And yet every single day, companies are stopping us from joining together for a better life. They see workers trying to come together to form a union as a threat. They fire us if they think that we're pro-union. They put us in rooms, you've heard of this, captive audience meetings, for hours and hours where they force us to listen to anti-union propaganda. They threaten to move the factory or shut down jobs if we dare to form a union. All illegal, by the way, but happening. You heard it, happening every single day because these companies act with absolute impunity. It's like cheaper to them, like to violate the law and then try to adjudicate it than actually complying with it. It's time to hold them accountable. It is time to give every worker in this country the choice to decide if a union is right for them. Now, we hear a lot about how divided the working class of this country is. I'll tell you what I hear from workers every day. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, they're actually unified unified in saying this economy isn't working for them. The rules are written for the richest and most powerful people in this country. That's what I'm hearing. And I'm hearing that this is the moment to do something about it. We have nearly 15 million workers in our labor movement in the AFL-CIO who want to protect our right to organize, who want to stand up for fairness and opportunity, and who are ready for this fight. Are you ready for this fight? Yes. That's what I thought. Let's get it done. Thank you.